A man goes missing in Thailand, and the search fills the internet with posters and hope. But the verified timeline says something colder. On March 26, 2025, Jakob Jensen was already in a Bangkok police station, and by night, he was dead. For weeks, he stayed unidentified, while the world kept looking for him. This episode contains factual reporting on a missing person case and a documented in-custody death. Some details may be disturbing. What follows is reconstructed from documented reporting and official statements described in those reports, available at the time of release. Some details may change as investigations and forensic findings develop. A clearly labeled speculation lane appears later in the episode, separate from the verified timeline. Listener discretion is advised. The first version of this story is the one that spreads fastest. A name, a photo, a few dates, and a question that feels answerable if enough people look in the right direction. Jakob Jensen, 41, Danish, missing in Thailand. And in the early weeks, missing didn't mean a crime scene or a confirmed disaster. It meant a vanishing that looked administrative at first. One of those moments where a person is supposed to move from point A to point B, and then they don't. Reporting describes Jakob arriving in Thailand on February 2nd, 2025, and staying in the south, in Phra Khanong province, with a close friend. It's the kind of detail that matters because it places him inside a normal human network. Someone knew where he was. Someone was with him. Someone could tell the world. This is the last place he was anchored. Then, on March 1st, that anchor loosens. Multiple reports describe the friend driving him to Suvarnabhumi Airport in Bangkok, intending to get him on a flight back to Denmark. But Jakob did not board that flight. That's where the missing person story begins to take shape. Not with jungle, not with islands, not with mystery terrain, but with an airport and a no-show. The next confirmed contact, according to reporting, is an email to his mother on March 2nd. The message did not indicate distress, and then by March 3rd, his phone is described as switched off. From there, the search becomes a chain of signals and public coordination. Family concern turns into outreach. Outreach turns into posts. Posts turn into leads. In the reports, there's a long, quiet stretch after the phone goes dark. No verified sightings, no direct contact. Then, around March 19, he appears again in the timeline, reportedly seen back in Phra Khanong, staying at the Palmy Hotel. That reappearance matters because it's not abstract. It's a place with a front desk, a record, a memory of a man moving through a building. It tells the family and the people helping them that Jakob wasn't gone into thin air. He was still in the world, still walking, still passing through doors. And then the situation escalates. Reporting describes an incident on March 21st in Phra Khanong. Jakob is described as confused and incoherent, and he is reported to have damaged property at a guest house or hotel, prompting intervention. Tourist police are described as assisting with settling the cost of the damage and then helping him onto a bus to Bangkok. That bus ride becomes a hinge point in the public version of the story, because it's the last moment where the timeline feels like it has rails. He was in Phra Khanong. Police helped him. He was put on a bus. The destination, Bangkok. But even in that moment, the reports capture a key fracture. Jakob reportedly told officers he planned to meet a friend in the capital, while his family reportedly said they weren't aware of anyone he knew there. So now, there are two stories running at once. There's the official action story, police interaction, a bus ticket, a destination. And there's the family story, the sense that the destination doesn't match the map of his relationships, which means anything that happens after that bus leaves Ranong could be unmoored from the people who would normally pull him back. Then comes the detail that shaped the search geography. A witness later claimed to have seen Jakob get off the bus in Prachuap Khiri Khan. Reporting says that claim helped form the belief that he may have travelled through or remained in the area, and that it became part of the basis for subsequent missing person appeals. That is how a missing person case acquires a centre of gravity. Not because it's proven, because it's the last thing that looks like a direction. Prachuap Khiri Khan is not a single point. It's a province. It's coastline and highways and transit stops and towns that tourists pass through without stopping. But when a family is trying to build a search from fragments, the first plausible anchor becomes a working theory, where volunteers look, where people ask questions, where posters start to matter. And the posters did matter. Hua Hin today later described Jakob as the focus of numerous public appeals after family raised concerns, with the last known movements, at the time, placing him in Prachuap Khiri Khan in March. This is the phase where the public meets the case. A missing person appeal is an invitation. It asks strangers to become witnesses after the fact, to rewind their own days and search for a face in their memory. It asks hotel staff to check logs, drivers to check dashcams, clinic workers to check notes, and expats to check group chats for anything that might connect to a man whose phone is dark. Reporting also frames the family's fear in practical terms. Concern that he was without essential medication and in a vulnerable mental state. That's not atmosphere. That is urgency. Because every day that passes isn't just distance, it's risk. As the days stretched, the search broadened into official channels. Scandasia reported the case being reported to the Royal Danish Embassy in Thailand, Thai Tourist Police, Thai Immigration, and Danish Police, with Danish Police initiating an international missing persons request on May 6, 2025. That date matters because it tells you how long the family had already been living inside uncertainty by the time the request goes international. Early March to early May is not a weekend of silence. It's weeks of checking, calling, posting, waiting, and trying to hold on to the idea that a living person will eventually pick up a phone. In this phase, every detail becomes a search tool. A confirmed arrival date, a missed flight, a last email, a phone that stopped moving through the network, a hotel sighting that reopens the map, a bus to Bangkok, a claimed sighting in Prachuap Khiri Khan that pulls attention south again. The frame stays locked. What matters here is what can be placed on a calendar, what can be supported by reporting, and what that reporting shows about the shape of the search before the confirmed custody timeline ever became public. Here's the hard truth of the missing version of the story. At the time the appeals were spreading, the public narrative still had an open ending. The working assumption was that Jakob was alive somewhere between the last credible sighting and whatever came next, and that if the right person recognized him, the case would pivot from missing to located. That's why this episode starts here. Not to relive the social media search as spectacle, but to show how the case was understood in real time. How reasonable people built a map from limited verified points, and how that map shaped where eyes were looking. Because the tragedy of this case isn't just what happened later. It's that the search and the official reality were already drifting toward a collision, and nobody in the public search lane had enough information to see it coming. By the time the story reaches Bangkok, the public version is still searching outward, down roads, through provinces, across hotel lobbies and bus terminals. but the verified timeline narrows into a single night. March 26, 2025. In the reporting, police are called to an area on Rod Phai Sai Gaw Road in Bangkok's Klong Toei district because a foreign man is in traffic and appears distressed. It's visible. It's the kind of scene that forces a response because it's happening in the open. Confusion, risk, and a crowd that can't pretend it didn't see. Police arrive. The man is detained and taken to Phra Khanong Police Station. From here, the story becomes procedural. Not cold, not abstract, but controlled by systems. Custody logs, staff decisions, the limits of communication, and what happens to a person when they are reduced to unknown in an official place. A key detail in the reporting is that he has no official identification on him. That single absence changes everything. It means he is not Jakob Jensen yet, not on a form, not in a database, not in the language of a station record. He is described instead as an unidentified foreigner, an unknown person in custody, with no confirmed name, no confirmed next of kin, and no easy way to connect him to the missing persons search already unfolding elsewhere. Then the night continues. Later, he is found unresponsive. The reported time is around 21:30 to 9:30 p.m. on March 26th. And if you stop right there, you can feel the collision forming. While posters and appeals were still trying to locate a living man, the custody timeline says the person in the station was already gone. After he is found unresponsive, the reporting indicates his body is transferred to Chulalongkorn University's Faculty of Medicine, pending identification and coordination. And that's where the story shifts again, because without ID, even death doesn't immediately solve the question of who he is. A name doesn't automatically attach itself to a body. Instead, what's left is process, an institution holding remains, an institution holding records, and the slow work of linking an unidentified person to a real identity, through documentation, through embassies, through whatever proof can survive the gaps. And that leads to the question this episode can't dodge. If the public was searching for Jakob Jensen, and Jakob Jensen was already dead, how did his name fail to meet his body for weeks? For a while, the search stayed alive because the search still had a person to find. In one lane, his name was moving through public space. Appeals, posters, messages shared between strangers, the kind of grassroots urgency that builds when a family has nothing else to hold on to. In the other lane, the body moved through official space, custody records, a transfer to a medical faculty, an unidentified case file that did not yet connect to Jakob Jensen. And that's the failure at the center of this story, the gap between identity and custody, long enough that the world could be looking at the same man from two different directions and never realize it was the same person. The reporting describes the most basic reason that gap can open. He had no official identification on him when police took him in, no document to anchor the name, no immediate link to next of kin, no clean, instant way for a station to turn an unknown foreigner into a specific missing person whose family is already searching. So the timeline becomes a kind of split-screen tragedy. A missing person case can be loud, public-facing, fast-moving, full of leads and guesses. An unidentified death can be quiet, contained inside institutions governed by procedure, and slowed by what isn't in someone's pockets when they're detained. In this case, the reporting indicates that identification did not happen immediately, and that he remained unidentified for weeks while the search continued elsewhere. That delay is the part you can't brush off as unfortunate timing, because timing is exactly what determines whether a family gets answers quickly or gets stuck in an extended loop of uncertainty. And once you accept that the delay happened, the story naturally turns to accountability. Not accusation, not narrative heat, just process questions that any system should be able to answer clearly. What minimum welfare and medical checks apply when a person in custody appears distressed and cannot be reliably identified? What are the escalation steps when communication is limited? Language barriers, confusion, no documents, no confirmed contacts, and the situation looks like it could be a health crisis. What is the handoff protocol between a police station and the medical and forensic systems that take custody after death? And when a foreign national is unidentified, what is the notification chain that connects local records to embassies and finally to family? Fast enough that a missing person search doesn't keep running long after the outcome is already fixed. Those questions aren't speculation, they're the framework. Because this episode isn't trying to solve a mystery with guesswork. It's tracing what's documented and asking how a name can disappear inside systems, then reappear only after the window for real-time intervention is already closed. A clearly labeled speculation lane follows, process only. Nothing here is about motive. This is only about how systems can lose a name. If a foreign national is detained without official identification, there are a few process-level ways an identity can fail to attach, even when people outside the system are actively searching. One possibility is the simplest. No reliable identifier entered early enough. If a person arrives without a passport, without a Thai ID, without a phone that can be accessed, and without a confirmed address or contact, the record starts as unknown, and every later step inherits that blank space. Another possibility is property separation. If personal effects are lost, misfiled, not logged correctly, or never arrive with the person, then even something as small as a card, a note, a hotel key sleeve, or a foreign language document that could trigger a lead is gone from the chain. There's also language and naming friction. A person can provide a name that's misspelled, partially heard, or recorded phonetically. Add stress, confusion, or a medical episode, and the name can become unusable for a match, especially if databases require exact matches or standardized spelling. Then there's data silos. A missing person search can live in one lane: public appeals, tourist police conversations, embassy emails, while an unidentified death lives in another lane: station logs, hospital intake, forensic holding procedures. If there isn't a strong routine cross-check between missing foreign national lists and unidentified foreign national records, the two stories can run in parallel without touching. And finally, time. Even when the right checks exist, fingerprints, photos, dental comparison, DNA, those steps can take days or weeks depending on workload, prioritization, and whether there's a reference sample or a confirmed family channel ready to move. If any combination of those gaps occurred, the result looks like what this case appears to show from the outside: a missing person search continuing in public, while the official identity match lags behind reality. Whatever the exact cause, the impact is the same. A family and the public can be asked to look for someone who is no longer reachable, because the name hasn't met the record yet, because the paperwork and the phone calls and the databases and the handoffs didn't connect fast enough to stop the search from running on hope alone. And that's the final frame for this story. Not a myth, not a rumor mill. A documented timeline built from reported events and official process reporting that leaves one clean question hanging in the air, the kind of question any accountable system should be able to answer without flinching. How does an unidentified foreigner die in custody and remain unidentified long enough that the search stays alive without the truth catching up? If you're Jakob Jensen's family, if you're the people who shared his photo, who replayed your days trying to place his face, who watched the calendar move and kept believing one call could change everything, this isn't a twist in a story. It's a wound. It's time you can't get back. It's a gap where certainty should have been. And if you're anyone who lives in a world of institutions, police stations, hospitals, embassies, records offices, this case asks for something basic. Clarity. A process that doesn't let a human being become a file for weeks, while the living keep searching in the dark. Sources for this episode include reporting published by Scandasia, Hua Hin Today, and The Tiger. We also relied on details attributed in that reporting to Thai police statements and official process updates described in those articles. Thank you for spending your time here with me. Until next time. This is Shadows of Siam, where the land remembers what others try to forget.